You're now tuned in to The Investor Show, where we teach simple wealth creation for the common investors. With investment advisor, award-winning author, international speaker, and founder of Royal Financial Investment Group, Prince Dykes.
Once again, guys, this is The Investor Show coming to you guys from all the way from Japan. I know you guys are used to me saying Hawaii, where I'm usually at, but I'm out here in Japan, doing a little time out here. But it doesn't stop. The show must continue to go on. As always, I know I usually say it's a nice, beautiful day here in Hawaii, but I can't say the same about Japan right now. It's a little chilly here. I'm actually getting a real winter, but it's okay. But like I always say, it's all about what's on the inside, not what's on the outside. But don't forget to if you're hearing this on the YouTube channel, hit that like button, subscribe button, share button, all the other great stuff. Email the show if you got any questions. If you want to be on the segment of Ask Prince, all the other great stuff. Hit the subscribe button, like button, share button, all the other great stuff. I want to say thank you guys for supporting the podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, books, all the other great stuff. And we're going to continue it going in 2017. This is my first interview in 2017. As you guys can already see in the description box, I have a very, very special guest. But as always, I don't have a lot of time, and I definitely you guys don't have a lot of time, so we're going to jump straight into it. So today I have a very special guest by the name of Phillip Taylor. How I ended up finding Mr. Taylor, he is the founder and the host of the largest financial bloggers conference in the world right now, and called FinCon. He has been hosting FinCon. This year is going to be in 2017 down in Dallas, Texas, where he's have, some of the biggest name in financial blogging around the world come in and do all type of great stuff. I haven't been myself, me being in and out and on the road and stuff like that or whatever. But one year I definitely have to go check it out. But I brought him in because I want him to tell his story. Where does he come from? How does he start this? What is his financial background? All the other great stuff that you guys want to know too. So without further ado, let me introduce to you guys Mr. Phillip Taylor. How's it going, Mr. Taylor?
Prince, it's great to be here with you.
Definitely. Oh, also, when I forgot to, I don't want to shortchange you here. He's been all over the place from Forbes to Fox Business to Men's Health. He got his own blog, he got his own conference, he got his own podcast, Masters of Money. Definitely go check that out. But without further ado, let's learn about a little bit about Mr. Taylor. How did he get his start? So my first question for you is, exactly that. Who is Phillip Taylor?
Good question. Well, I'm the son of a CPA and a writer, and so naturally I would find myself becoming a financial writer one day. It didn't start out that way, but that's where I'm at now. I'm from Louisiana originally, ended up in Texas doing some corporate work after college, got the CPA, got the accounting degree, did that for 10 years, and then decided that writing was going to be my next thing. And started a blog in 2007 called ptmoney.com, where I share my story with money and help folks along the way. It's a kind of an accountability tool for me just to share my progress and talk about money stories that, make sense for me and help me kind of change things in my life and move toward the goals that I have. That's been fun. Along the way, I've been able to meet a lot of other people doing the similar thing, writing, talking about personal finance. And so in 2011, I started a conference for those folks called FinCon, and we get together once a year. It's just a great community of people. And so luckily, those two businesses now sustain me, and we live here in Texas, my wife and 3 kiddos and young kids, and just really enjoying it, still enjoying talking about money. Even started a new podcast, like you mentioned, called Masters of Money, where I just interview real people who are not afraid to share what's happening in their financial life, because I really feel like us having these conversations, these stories, is what's going to propel financial change in the United States and across the world. So we need it, and I'm lucky to be a part of it.
Oh, definitely. That's a crazy combination. What was it? Your mom or your dad was a CPA?
Yeah, my dad's a CPA, so I kind of grew up in that world, and I wanted to reject it and try to do my own thing, and I tried for a little bit, but eventually I took that first accounting class and I aced it, so I was like, well, maybe this is for me, and so followed in Dad's footsteps and enjoyed it, but realized that having my own practice and doing client work like that, or even working in corporate finance, just wasn't for me, and so I needed to kind of have my own entrepreneurial endeavors, and luckily, I guess the creative side of my brain took over and was able to share my ideas with the world through my blog and now my podcast.
That's pretty interesting, that your dad is a CPA, your mom is a writer, and you kind of like combine that together. I understand where you're coming from when you say, for people who don't understand out there, a CPA is a certified public accountant. It's pretty much like a whole other degree. It's pretty industry standard. CPA, they specialize in taxes, accountants, and stuff like that. So people keep hearing the term CPA being thrown around, so you understand what that is. So one of the big things is, my parents were school teachers, and I said, man, I'm not going to be a school teacher for nothing. I don't not want to do that. My mom and my dad and my aunts and uncles were school teachers. I don't want to do that. So even though I'm not a school teacher, I still kind of find myself teaching in the same way, but in a different context. Kind of crazy how that works out. So
there you go. We take from we take from all parts of us to make who we are. Yep.
So now, when you got onto this path, was it kind of something that kind of naturally came, or is it something that you were kind of saying, hey, you was going through some financial issues? What got you so interested in it besides, your dad being in it and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, my father and my CPA passing that exam and getting the accounting degree, they helped me to a degree in terms of helping me with learning how to invest for the future, learning how to, do my taxes properly. But really, to be honest with you, that background didn't really prepare me for managing my money on a practical daily basis and living within my means, So early on in my life, from probably 22, 23 on to about 28, I was kind of floundering around financially. I had some leftover credit card debt from college. I had some student loans. I was, taking out car loans here and there, and I just wasn't seeing my savings really accumulate into much. I try to save at the end of the month a little bit, and then the next month I would overspend, and so I'd pull that money back into my checking account and spend it, and just didn't really feel like I was getting ahead. And I'm not sure what was actually the catalyst for it, but maybe it was I got really serious when I was about to get married. So I met my wife when I was 28, and decided that I needed to. By the time I was a couple years into my marriage, I wanted to be debt free. I wanted to have some savings saved up because I was going to be a dad, and just life and its the adult part of life, I guess, started taking over for me, and I realized this was a passion of mine, to not only fix this, but to optimize it and to potentially, retire early one day, or potentially be a millionaire and save up for that, and just be smart about my money. So I knew I had this somewhat of a financial background, but I really had to get my grounding in the basics of managing my money, living within my means. And I turned to Dave Ramsey early on in terms of a lot of the debt reduction stuff. And then I discovered personal finance blogs online. So before I started in 2007, there were a handful of other personal finance blogs that were already out there, and I was reading them and being inspired by them. And I got the sense that they were doing it in part because they wanted to hold themselves accountable to reach better and bigger goals financially for themselves. And so that's a lot of what attracted me to it. And so, that's why I ended up doing one myself, because, I wanted to kind of fast track what I was doing with my finances. And then that eventually became a part-time business for me, and that became eventually my full-time business. So, and then that even fast tracked my finances even more. So it's been an interesting journey, but I think it started by just me wanting more control, both over my career, both over my future and my life, and security for my family, my future family. And so once those things started sinking into my life, taking the actions to create the systems and learn the things I needed to learn to make progress with my money became a lot easier and a lot more exciting to me.
Okay, it makes perfect sense. I guess we have very similar paths because, right now I'm active duty military, and I've been active duty military now in June, it'll be 14 years. And I started years ago with this, just something on the side, and it's grown, and something that I plan on doing once my military career is over and done with, to pretty much take it full time. So, because, we have to do something after the military life. So you're 38 years old or something like that, you still have a lot of life to live, or should. You never know. But one of the questions, we have a new president coming along by the name of Donald Trump. By any means, this is not a political show. But throughout the campaign, we all know that Donald Trump is, pretty wealthy. He has billions of dollars and stuff like that. And it was scrutinized throughout the election, and I've had people inbox me this all the time. How does this man makes all this money, but he openly say, hey, I don't pay any tax. And, by you being a CPA, can you make sense of that in some type of way?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm not sure that I know the answer. I mean, I haven't seen his tax returns to know, but, I suspect it has something to do with his accountants, lawyers are able to structure his businesses in a way that take any current earnings that his businesses might have and defer them to the future, right? So defer those tax dollars to future dates. So his companies are successful; they make money. But my suspicion is that he's either found a way to shelter that income, so prevent it from being taxed right now and moved it to a later date, or put it in some type of entity or expensed it in some way that has, and I'm just totally spitballing here. I have no idea, how that's the case.
Oh, yeah,
for him.
definitely.
But yeah, I mean, from as a business owner and as someone who takes your capital, invests it in businesses, in employees, in buildings, the tax code, the tax structure is set up to help you since you're doing so much in the marketplace, there's so much involved in the tax code that can help you out. It's not just a simple W-4 for him and getting a simple paycheck and then him, somehow avoiding taxes by that. It has something to do with the business structure. And like I said, he's probably deferring as much tax to future dates as much as possible. So putting things in trusts.
Okay.
Also with heavy real estate investment comes the depreciation factor. So the tax code allows us to depreciate a tremendous amount of expense for our real estate. For instance, just a small example, I own a rental property here in town, and it probably on paper makes me about $4,000 a year, right? So at the end of the year, I've collected rents and done all my expenses, paid my mortgage, and I make about $4,000, right? But when you put that in the tax code, I've got depreciation to account for, and I actually end up losing about $8,000 at the end of the year from a tax perspective. So that actually helps me when it comes to tax time, the amount of real estate I own there and the depreciation factor. Now, that will come back to haunt me one day because there's something called depreciation recapture that, once I sell the house, I'll have to account for. But anyway, long answer to say, I don't believe that, Donald Trump's doing anything shady or anything. I think his folks are using the tax code, and it's all many complicated facets to their advantage. So.
Makes sense, And the reason why I asked that question is that, that you being a CPA, and I have people writing all the time, well, I'm just a regular person. I pay this much in tax. What is he doing? How does he doesn't pay anything in tax? And I'm not a CPA, and I was right there with you with them. Like, I'm pretty sure, it's, by having a business, you are open to a lot of write-offs. So just something I just wanted to kind of touch bases with and stuff like that. So now, going back over your life and getting into finance and personal finance and investing and stuff like that, what would you say was, along the way, what was probably your worst investment? Like, what was that thing you're like, oh, crap, or if you had one, and if you had one, what would you probably say your worst one was, and what are some red flags, and what are some common, mistakes that people may run into and making to avoid this type deal?
Yeah, so probably one of my more current, and I have a lot of these, so I'm by no means the perfect investor. Across the board, I've made some mistakes. And more currently, specifically in single stock picking. So I actually keep most of my retirement portfolio in low-cost passive index funds through Vanguard. So you can actually go to my website, ptmoney.com, and see exactly the one fund I choose for all my retirement. So 95% of my money is in that, right? That's doing good. That's a 40-year projection I've got on those funds, and I'm happy with that. I'm not going to look at that money for another 40 years. But on the other side, I take about 5 to 10% of my portfolio, and I do dabble in less diverse types of investments. So, for instance, I do some single stock picking. So over the past couple of years, I've chosen 2 stocks to play around with. The first one was Twitter, and I rode that in 2016 and lost half of my value in 2015. I lost half my value in Twitter. And then this year, I chose Etsy, thinking I'd make that up, and Etsy is down now probably 5% on the year. So I've not done too hot in a single stock picking, and that's why it's a small percentage of my portfolio, because I don't trust myself to do well in that department. Another area that I've more recently discovered that is a bad investment is my rental property. That was our old home, so we put 20% down when we first bought it, which I think was a smart move back in 2007. And then we decided not to sell it, keep it as a rental property when we moved out. So in effect, I had roughly 20% invested in that rental property. Well, the market has shot up in our area, and so that rental property is now worth almost double what it was when I bought it. So in that sense, the investment is doing good. So you would say, oh, that's a good investment, PT, but actually for what my renter is paying me to use that equity. So my renter's paying me, $2,175 a month, which is a pretty good rent. And so I'm making my cash flow. But if you look at that compared to the equity that's in the house, it's almost like only 1 or 2% annually that I'm making. So imagine you putting $100,000 in the stock market and only getting 1 or 2% back at the end of the year. You'd be pretty sad. You'd be pretty disappointed. And so that's kind of where I am with my rental property right now. I'm feeling pretty deflated. And so I'm thinking about doing some type of home equity line of credit or something there, and refinance. Sorry, not home equity line of credit, but a refinance where I take some of that money out of there and maybe invest in some more properties or something. But anyway, long story. Those are a couple of recent bad investments.
You are tuned into The Investor Show.
Like what you just said, right? By doing the individual stock picking didn't go so well. With you named 2 companies. So when you said Twitter off the bat, I was like, that could be a little rough. Yep. But so with doing the individual stock picking and the rental property, thanks for enlightening us on that aspect. Now, if I was to go on the flip side of the coin and ask you, what would probably say was some of your best investment? What were some of the things that you said, hey, this paid off. This was pretty good. I know the index is doing pretty good, but what you probably say was some of your best investments?
Yeah, so biggest one for me in single stock picking area was Eagle Pharmaceuticals back in 2015. That 5x'd over the year. So I bought it at like $18 a share, and it went up to $95 or something like that by 6 months. So it's crazy. I only had like $500 invested in it, but it made me some money at the end of the year. So that's my one single stock picking victory, and that's probably what led me to go down the Twitter route and the Etsy route, and so I've lost all my earnings from that. What else? A big investment for me has been in my businesses, and those have probably produced the most return for me. I'm a bootstrapper in that I start my businesses without borrowing money or without taking on any investors or anything like that. So I've started both my businesses, both my blog and now my conference, just with my own funds and my own time and energy. And both those have paid off tremendously. And so I'm bullish on investing in future businesses for myself. And so I see that's where a lot of my return can come in the future. And if I focus, and I just have fun with that more so than real estate or stock picking. For others, that may be more enjoyable. I do enjoy real estate a little bit, but for me, it's fun to build something, and that it also can become an investment for you in the future. So now I haven't capitalized on either of these businesses. They're throwing off some cash, which is nice. And on paper, they're looking like they're valuable and worth something, but hopefully one day they will pay off in the capitalizing sense. So we'll see.
Awesome. That's good that and I like to get into that stuff and stuff like that. Well, I like to let people see, going into the world of investing that nobody's going to be perfect. You're going to have some bad ones because, like you said, your first investment, you did real well. And sometimes you make that mistake. They become overconfident and say, hey, I got this thing. Then they overinvest into their next investments. And then they end up wiping themselves clean because they lost the profits. They lost the confidence bills, and they put more money into stuff that they shouldn't have put it in. But that's good that you shared that so people can see, hey, in the world of finance and investing, it may not work out in real estate, but it can work out in business. It may not work out in business. It may work out in the market. So it's just, it's different ways to invest. It's not just the market. You can go to the market, you go to real estate, you can go to your own businesses, stuff like that. Invest into yourself, education. But my question for you, right now we're in the midst of being a CPA right here in tax season. I know some people that, they've gotten pretty great jobs and or maybe not have gotten pretty great jobs, and they're looking for ways to kind of like, I know you don't see everybody's tax, they don't have their whole application and forms and everything in front of you, but what are some general things people can kind of do to expose themselves less to taxes? Yeah.
So several ways to think about, two main ways to think about this, right? So one is reduce the amount of income that you're having to report to the IRS. So obviously you want to make as much money. In real life, you want to make as much money as possible. But you want the amount that the IRS sees as taxable income to be as low as possible. So you need to look at understand the tax system and understand, ways to do that. One quick way to do that I like, that kind of has a double whammy, is to invest for your retirement through tax advantaged accounts. So things like a 401k or a Roth traditional IRA. So by investing in these, so you make $100,000 this year, and you invest $10,000 of that in your traditional IRA. Well, you made $100,000 on paper, and you've got $10,000 now in your retirement account, and the IRS will tax you only on $90,000 right now. So you've reduced what the IRS can tax you. So that's one way to look at it, by reducing that income. Another way to look at it is trying to accelerate expenses. So if you have, it's a little late, I guess, in the year. We should probably have made this segment for December, but some of these it's a little late to pull the trigger on these. But but accelerate expenses as much as possible. So if you've got, don't let the tail wag the dog, as they say. Don't chase expenses just so you can reduce your taxable bill. But if you have expenses that are coming up in your business, it might make sense to go ahead and invest in those now, and so that you can deduct those dollars from your current income. Just from a practical sense, I would say, as a business owner, you want to have your accounts separate. So make sure your personal and business stuff is separate. Use tax software online if you want to. Start off that way. It's free to familiarize yourself with how your business might be taxed. Go down that road. And then if you get at the end of the return, you say, I'm not feeling quite confident, call up a CPA. See if you can book an appointment to have him look at it and maybe help you out with your taxes. More importantly, a CPA would help you out with like future business tax planning. So they could help you with creating a business structure that might be more advantageous for your business. For instance, I run my company as an LLC, but then for tax purposes, I claim S-Corp filing status. And this has a little bit of a change in the way payroll taxes are. And we're getting a little complicated, I know, at this point. But long story short, a CPA will be able to tell you help you how to structure your business such that you'll be advantageous from a tax perspective. So just those are a couple of nuggets I got right now. But
okay,
yeah.
Those are very good ones, and the reason, like you're 100% right. This should have been an episode that we done back in December or before tax season. But people don't really think about taxes until tax season.
Mm-hmm.
People don't. It doesn't really come on the radar until around November, December, January, February time frame of taxes. When you're talking in March and April, May, June, just the everyday person that's going to work every day usually don't foresee taxes. So, but by it being a hot topic now and something that's coming up that's going to rev up even more, that people can possibly take something away from or whenever they tune in. Something that you mentioned earlier. You explained. You said you're a founder of FinCon, the financial conference. So could you go a little bit deeper into what exactly is FinCon?
Sure. Like I mentioned in 2007, 2008, when I was starting my own site, I was researching these other sites, the websites, ordinary people, some of them professional with CPAs, some of them with just backstories of getting out of a lot amount of debt or doing really well with their investing, and choosing to share that online with other people. For the sake of accountability, for the sake of, just connecting with other people who are geeks about personal finance or investing. And so I started meeting a bunch of these people at different conferences. Some were in my own town, so I would meet them up for coffee or we would have lunch and we would just talk shop. We would talk about the recent blog post they just wrote or how to use social media, the latest social media tool, or how to work with an advertiser on a particular revenue stream you want to, start up. So just sharing ideas of a little budding industry, right? The digital media industry is continuing to grow. It's still in infancy, but back then it was really early on and we were still just trying to figure things out. And so the idea was that if I could talk to many people as possible, invest in these relationships, that they will pay off down the line. And that feeling, that concept helped me take my blog from a part-time hustle, something I was doing just on nights and weekends, to something I did full-time. So I was able to leave the corporate finance world and become a full-time blogger. And it sounds funny to even say, but that was possible for me back in 2010. And a year later, I said, this has been great. I enjoy being a full-time blogger, but now all my friends and my colleagues are all online across the world. So I'd love to get them all together. And so let's have a big party. And I was by no means the leader of this pack, but I was the first to raise my hand and say I'll throw the first party. So the word of advice I would give to any potential event planners out there, someone who would want to create their own conferences, don't try to get people together that don't already want to be together. So find a group of people who are itching to be around each other and be the first to throw the party. And that made my job so easy as someone who was trying to market the conference and sell tickets and get people there and get sponsors interested. Because really, everyone wanted to be there. They just were looking for the excuse or for the first person to do it. And so that's how I got into that world. I learned a lot about event planning and how to run a conference. And it's been the best move I've made probably in business so far, is
Nice.
Is making that conference, because it's the connections I've now made and the position it's put me in as someone who has the platform now have been tremendous, and I could see me in some way leveraging that's a weird term, making use of the platform that I've established for myself in the future from years to come. So it's a great party. We've grown from 250 people. Now in our 7th year in Dallas, we'll have over 1,500 people. So it's crazy how it's grown, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. That is truly awesome. What made you get into that and starting out and stuff like that? Now, how does someone become a full-time blogger? Like, how do you make money being a blogger out there? You know?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
For me, For me, it was about getting enough people to read my information. And so taking it a step back further, it was about answering the right questions for people. So you have a financial question, the average person probably goes to Google and types that in the search engine, right? Well, I got really good at being one of the top results for those questions. So I was a good question answerer, in the financial space. So I wrote a lot about, how I was buying my first house. I wrote about, back then it was like cash for clunkers to the Stimulus Act. I mean, it was all these kind of hot button topics in the financial world that people were curious about. And so I've written over 1,200 articles now for that site. So, obviously it's been a 10-year process, but the first couple of years I probably wrote, 3 or 4 times a week and just share my thoughts and ideas. And Google started sending me traffic. Social media started sending me traffic. It was all free. I wasn't paying to get that traffic. People were just coming to the website. And so the more eyeballs I got, I realized, wow, this is a lot of people paying attention to my stuff here, reading my material. What do I do with them after they read my material? Do I sign them up for an email? Do I help them go get the tools and services they need to kind of execute on my education? And that's what I decided to do. So I started connecting with banks, brokers, and credit cards companies and saying, hey, I've got a reader here who read this article about how to open a Roth IRA. I've told them everything they know about how to open a Roth IRA. The only thing I haven't given them is a link to go to an institution to do that. And so that's what I started doing, was connecting my readers to an institution, a financial company, who could actually serve that reader. And that institution is willing to pay me a commission or a referral fee for that. So I just made that as big and as, voluminous as possible, and it was able to get to a point to where it was enough money to replace, when it was about $4,000 a month in income. That's when it kind of started more or less replacing my corporate salary. So I decided that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life, or at least for the near term. Mm-hmm. So that's when I took off to do that. Yeah.
You're tuned into The Investor Show with Prince Dykes.
That's very nice. And that's a great way of how you started something and you created a platform. And, pretty much you just the platform, you just a source of knowledge where people can come and get something. And you was connecting people to, other resources out there, which made it a nice, happy marriage for you to connect and stuff like that or whatnot. So that's pretty awesome for you, that came out. Now, with the world of finance, with CPAs and investment advisor representatives, and, like you said, you came in the game in 2007 with blogging, and you've seen the growth over the last decade of, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these social media sites out there. so much information out there. How does one person know who to trust? How do you know what to trust? So, where to get your information from?
This is a great question. Yeah, it is too much information right now. It is. And so you've got to get really good at discovering for yourself what's the best information and where you should pay attention. So I would first take a broad brush and say, I need to, you don't want to put blinders on and immediately turn a blind eye to everything that's out there. So I would say at first, if you're just getting into personal finance and investing, I would try to read as much and understand as much as possible and look at it from all different angles, take it from all perspectives. The internet has created a democracy of information. That is a good and a bad thing. We're kind of hitting on the bad in that you may have some bad players out there, but it's a good thing in that there's so many sources that are going to relate to you and your story and talk to you specifically in your particular situation. So I'm very big on it. And that's a part of the reason their conference has grown is because there's so many voices. So at first I would say be open to lots of different channels, right? Be open to lots of different places. But then I would say look for people and places who are good at sharing experience over just relying on their establishment. So they're actually sharing like the specifics of what they're doing. They're showcasing their history. They're talking about case studies. So things, their actual numbers they're showing, like from A to B, this is what I did with my money. And so there's like a transparency to it, right? The second thing I would lean on is accountability, right? So a lot of people out there will have a CPA, will have a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner designation. I would lean heavily on folks who have that. And I'm not saying that just because, I am one, but I'm saying that because these people have something to lose, right? So I've worked hard to get my CPA. I've worked hard to establish myself with that designation, and I could lose it if I practice publicly in a space and do something inappropriate. And so, I don't want to lose that. I want to maintain that the rest of my life. And so I think people with something to lose like that creates an incentive for them to work in your best interest. And lastly, I would say you've got to, in some ways, become your own financial expert. So you can never outsource everything, right? So you've got to take this information, absorb it, check it against your gut, talk to your friends about it, talk to other financial mentors and experts around you, network as much as possible. And then over time, you will become your best sort of BS meter, right? You'll be able to tell you're looking at some stuff that's not above board, or you're looking at some stuff that's not the best of the best. And so you got to take it upon yourself. There's no excuse for you to outsource your financial life. You've got to become your own expert in a way. And I see that as such a positive thing, though. So some might see that as a burden initially, but it's such a beautiful life when you live it intentionally and you're in control of it, and not to say that, I'm saying that I'm at some perfect place or something like that, but with my finances, I found that my life has only improved when the more knowledge I've gained in this subject and the more open I am to conversations and ideas around money. So that's kind of my advice for that question.
Awesome. And you made some great points on that, and I want to kind of back it up with my own piece of just my own personal opinion with it too, of occupying and being in the space as well, is that you're 100% right. Look at, the credentials. Look at the credentials. Add up on the credentials like, with a CPA, CFP, different licenses that are out there. Because the thing about it is when somebody has a license, he's 100% right that, you're held to a certain standard. For example, a doctor that has a license, they can lose their license. Not only lose their license, they can go to jail for malpractice, all of the good stuff like that. And anybody that has a license, whether it's series exams or whether it's CPA, CFP, that's operating in the financial space, nobody's out there trying to lose their license because you worked hard to get them, You're not trying to pay fines, and your feet are held to the fire, type of thing. And so that's one good thing. Another thing is that you said connect with people that you feel comfortable with, like you said about this story, their history. Why are they there? Who are they? Find people that you personally connect with versus just someone who's just pushing a product or whatnot. So that's my word of advice. And then that's the thing I love about the financial investment industry and world is that it's all it's all numbers. It's kind of you can't tell me like, hey, I made a bunch of money off of Twitter. And I invested in it last year, and anybody can go pull Twitter numbers up. It's kind of hard to, BS people when you got pure numbers in front of you. But he's 100% right. Go behind the education and credentials because, not saying that just because somebody has a driver's license, they know how to drive, but at least they understand and know, and they have something they can lose, So that's one thing.
Yeah, and Prince, if I could add one more thing on top of the credentials even, sure. I forgot to say this, but if you're going to work with someone and pay them money or use them as a source, understand how they make money. So I told you how I make money on ptmoney.com, right? The institutions are paying me to refer you to their product or service. I disclose that on my website. That's really clear every time I do that. And so financial advisors who are selling you insurance or selling you investment ideas and funds, be clear on how they're getting paid off that. And so someone who's helping you should always be comfortable telling you how they're getting paid by helping you. And so as much as possible, don't be afraid to ask that question. It may not seem polite, but it's important to take ownership and to ask that question if you're dealing with someone that's working with you and your money. Because you just want to know there's nothing wrong with making money off of helping me. In fact, I want you to be rewarded by that, but I have to understand how so that I know where you might be incentivized to tell me something that may not be in my best interest.
Just very, very true. That's a very good point that you made up, showing that you have an invested interest of what somebody's going through. Like myself, I'm not a CPA or a CLP, but I do have my MBA and Series 65, Series 63 life, health, accident insurance license as well. But those things, that's part of having your Series 65 being a fiduciary. You must disclose if you have an invested interest of saying, hey, I'm sending you to this company or whatnot and stuff like that. So that's a very interesting point. Now, we're tying this all together with coming into the 2017 where we have all this technology, we have so much information out there, and my dad, he's getting ready to turn 71, and I always asked him, I said, Dad, why you didn't invest in me when I was a kid? And he told me, he said, well, I just didn't know. I didn't have the resources that you have now. Now you can pick up your phone and find out this and invest through your phone. Whereas with me, I would have had to drive 2 hours away and find a broker and find some random person. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what was, you can get information around for your phone and know what stocks are doing, know what investments are doing, get all type of news. And, I'd have had to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal and do all this other crazy stuff. So it was a little far-fetched back then. So now with us going into technology with apps and phones and this and that and all this stuff that's going on, and it's my personal belief that TV is becoming obsolete and radio is being what TV used to be, and now our phones are being TV. Right. Podcasts are replacing the radio. So with all this technology that's just great for the users and stuff like that, with all this technology, what do you see the personal finance and investment industry going to in the future?
It's a good question. Wrote down a couple things here. So I feel like since the options have opened up, more people will be able to do it themselves, right? So it's more DIY finance, which I think is a good thing. I already mentioned the transparency and accountability thing. I feel like the walls are being torn down on the traditional institutions and the traditional places that have helped us with our money. So we're able to see how things are working, kind of look behind the curtain. And I certainly feel like media is changing as well, in that it's a low barrier of entry for folks like you and I to start our own radio shows and educate, the consumer. FinTech is going to continue to be big. So Silicon Valley, the smartest guys in the U.S. down there are coming up with ways every day to help us with our money, whether that be in debt reduction, whether that be in budgeting and money management, or whether that be in investing. And so the financial solutions are going to be coming down the pipe faster, and they're just going to be investing heavily in that area. And so I think we'll have lots more to choose from. So I think what will win in the next couple of years is the institutions and the media outlets and the fintech companies that are able to curate. And when I say curate, I mean really pull from the massive amount of information and data and resources that we have and just kind of pluck out the best of the best and let the cream kind of rise to the top and just serve that up to consumer. Because that's what we're going to be looking for going forward, I think, is, man, there's so much information, there's so many tools, there's so many things. I just need to boil it down. We're human at the end of the day. We can only, process and consume so much. So I think what's going to win in the future is people who are able to kind of distill down all that we have into the simplest forms and allow us to use it that way. So I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's kind of my feeling going into 2017.
So you're pretty much saying that tools that can make the individual's person's job easier is pretty much going to be the future that people are going to go to.
I think so. I think we're overwhelmed. I am. With too many resources, too many tools, too many resources, too many ways to do it. And so I think what's going to win in the future is the people who are the gatekeepers of what's good. So I need to go to someone who's going to say, all right, there's 100 things out there. These are the top 2. These are the top 3. Like, that's what's going to win in the future is the people who are, is not people creating more new things, but it's the people who are taking all the things that we have and saying this is the best.
So we're hearing that, your thought process on that. I would say one of the kings would probably be brands. Because with so much information out there, so much going on, if I'm a regular I'm just going to throw this out there and put it in a different industry. Say if it's so many cars to choose from, I don't know what type of cars. I know I want one. I should get into it, but it's millions of cars out there, or whatever the case may be. And 9 times out of 10, let's say I just can't drive my car up to Ford and get a car out of the assembly line. I have to go to a dealer. So the dealer that I choose is probably going to be somebody I know or trust of or heard of. And that's why I think that, the brands will become, having that history, that goes back into who do you know, who do you trust. I look at people's history as well, how long they've been around, experience and credentials, and knowing their story, knowing who they are, and knowing that brand. For prime example, somebody is like, hey, I want to go start an account and buy and sell stock. One of the top platforms right now is E-Trade or TD Ameritrade or something like that. And and the only reason why that comes to head is because they seen it on TV, they heard about it, or they Googled it and they saw it. So I think that brands will play a huge role, because when you look at it, if you buy stock from, if you brought Twitter from TD Ameritrade, I brought it from E-Trade, my buddy down the street brought it from Scottrade, we all still got Twitter stock. We just use different ways to get there. So I think brands would be very important, going into the future with, so much clutter. But you're 100% right on that, of trying to narrow down what's going to be. So one of the things, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap this up. Tell if anybody want to contact, PT Money, how do they do it? How do they contact Phillip Taylor?
Yeah, actually, you can check out the website at ptmoney.com. I'm on Twitter at ptmoney. And then my email is pt@ptmoney.com if you have a question. Also, if you have anything you want to know about the conference, it's at finconexpo.com. And be glad to answer your question. And, hey, I'm going to throw this out there, Prince. I'd love to see you. We do live podcasting at the event. And so I'd love to invite you to come do your show live from the from the conference. We'll have a table and an audience set up for you, and I'd love to see you do this live and in the fall from the actual event. That'd be cool.
Definitely. I'll put it on the calendar, and we can see could we make that happen. To shoot it live and definitely bring the investor show because right now, like I'm usually in Hawaii. That's where I really based out of and live. So people see me do it in Hawaii, Atlanta, New York. So I definitely on the road now, Japan. So doesn't matter where I'm at, and I definitely be glad to be there and bring the investors show and Prince Dice down to FinCon. But we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
So one of the things. Is there anything you want to close out with, or anything you want to leave off with?
Yeah, I'll just say this. I'm so glad I took control of my finances because it allowed me to have a little more freedom in my life, to make choices, to start some businesses, to now have my wife at home with our kiddos and us to be able to travel a lot. It created an independence that I think I never would have had I not cleaned up my debt and started saving more and figuring out this money game. So let that be encouragement. It's been a long process. It's been 10 years, since I've really been serious about all this, and it's taken some time, but man, it's paid off tremendously. So I'd encourage listeners to take this moment to take charge and see themselves, in the future creating independence for themselves and leading to a more fulfilling life. So appreciate you having me on, Prince.
Oh, definitely. And for everybody out there, thank you guys. Go check out, the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, website, the books, apps, all the other great stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, my name is Prince Dykes. This is the Investor Show. Until the next episode, peace, be safe, and I'm out.